Presented by First Commonwealth Bank on the Voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160. It is 8:47. Time now for our interview segment presented by the law offices of Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. And we are streaming this interview on Facebook, so if you're on our Facebook page, you'll see State Representative Jim Struzzi has joined us in studio. Jim, it's good to see you again.
Thanks for having me on, Josh.
It's a pleasure to have you on, as always, keeping us connected with what's going on in state government. So one of the things that's coming up, and we mentioned it in our newscast today, and you announced it late yesterday,
yes,
that there's going to be another session of driver's license replacement that's going to be happening in Blairsville. So first time around, how did that go?
I thought it went very well. It was very well received, and we're happy to partner with the Blairsville Police Department to offer that service. I think it makes it convenient for people who have illegible license plates to exchange those for a new plate, and as was mentioned in the report, it saves on that replacement fee as well.
I actually did see a driver yesterday. I was in Westmoreland County, and as they were zipping on by, I noticed, hey, I can't even see the license plate. It had turned completely silver. Everything had worn off on that plate. So it really is important to have that done if it needs to be done.
It absolutely is, and like you said, you don't really notice it until you notice it, and then once you start to notice it, you realize that those types of license plates are quite prevalent, and people do need to get those replaced. So we're happy to offer that service, again, in partnership with the Blairsville Police Department at next weekend's Knotweed Festival. And I will say I'm looking forward to the Knotweed Festival. I will be walking in the parade, handing out candy and other items, and then we'll have a booth there throughout the day for people to come up and talk to us about their issues and concerns, or just to say hello and get some materials.
We did hear from some of our listeners who commented on the story that they had gone up to the first one, which was at the Food Truck Festival. I think it was a couple months ago, wasn't it?
I don't think it was that long ago, but maybe 6 weeks or so.
6 weeks or so, and they said that they have not received their license plates yet. You think that this is probably maybe just going through the normal course of government work in PennDOT?
Well, I will say, I share these concerns with my staff. We have had our own frustrations with the Department of Transportation recently, particularly in the driver and licensing portions. I think they're short-staffed right now, like many people, and they're trying to get people up to speed. But we have also heard similar frustrations. We're doing our part. And we're trying to get them to do their part, but oftentimes it's difficult, especially, in the tail end of administration, a lot of turnover and things changing. But my understanding is, and we've looked into this, that they are hiring additional people to try and expedite those processes.
Of course, as you mentioned, it being the final year for Governor Wolf, he presented the final budget, of course, and the final budget has passed. And we got to talk to you briefly about that whenever it did pass, and we thank you for doing that. But going into some detail, we've been seeing a lot of increases in education funding. For some school districts, maybe not as much as was originally anticipated, but they're still very grateful about it because it's important funding for them.
Well, absolutely. Last time we spoke, Josh, or last time I spoke to Todd, I was still in Harrisburg working on the budget. So we were there an extra week or so into July, but I think this turned out to be a really good budget, roughly about $44 billion, only about a 3% increase in spending. I think it funds many important programs, funds many important services for Pennsylvania residents, helps our small businesses, helps our larger businesses, and hopefully by reducing the corporate net income tax rate, attracts businesses and jobs back to Pennsylvania. You mentioned the school district funding, significant historical increase in education funding, and I did across the board, our Indiana County School District saw some significant increases that I think will be beneficial. And that helps all of us because it keeps our taxes low and provides a quality education, a much needed education and great services for our dedicated teachers and faculty in here in our local school districts.
You mentioned another big point that was part of the budget, reducing the corporate net income tax. Now, we've heard that this is going to be a great boon to the businesses and to the state as well for being able to attract businesses to come to Pennsylvania. Talk to us a little bit about that, and will this go further lower in the years to come?
Yeah, the plan right now is to reduce it to 8.9. Currently, it's 9.9, one of the highest corporate net income tax rates in the country. And when you try to attract businesses and you're in competition with other states, that certainly doesn't help. And that's one of the major arguments or I guess negatives that businesses have expressed to Pennsylvania is that, why would we come to Pennsylvania when you have such a high corporate net income tax rate when we can go somewhere else? And so what will happen, it'll be reduced to 8.99 this year, and then every year it'll be reduced by 0.5% till it gets down to 4.99, I believe, in 5 years. And hopefully that works to attract businesses back to Pennsylvania. It works to attract more investment, capital improvements in businesses, developments, and additional jobs here in this Commonwealth.
I heard a key word there, attempt. Is there any way that this could fail?
Well, that's why I think we were taking a gradual approach rather than a wholesale cut right down to 4.99. We want to see what impacts it does have. These are all educated guesses, if you will.
Okay.
The hope is that businesses see this as a positive, that we are open for business in Pennsylvania. For many years now, we have not advanced policies that attract businesses or promote job growth or economic growth. So I think we took a great leap forward here. And, it was a lot of cooperation back and forth with the administration, with our House and Senate leadership to get to this budget. And I was really happy the way this budget turned out. I know it didn't give everything that everybody wanted, but, myself being on the House Appropriations Committee and Senator Pittman being on the Senate Appropriations Committee, we both play key roles in advocating for things that help our communities, particularly here in Indiana County. And I think you saw that bear out here through this budget process.
I think also what we saw bear out is probably something that has been oft said, it's almost to the point that it's become a cliche. Probably the best agreements are ones that neither side is happy with, but they're willing to live with. Was this the mindset whenever the final document was signed?
Well, absolutely. If you look at the budget that the governor rolled out initially, it was an extreme amount of spending. So we rolled that back, but we were still able to fund things that were important to both caucuses and to the administration. And I think when you're talking about taxpayer money here, whether it's federal or state, and we need to be very fiscally responsible with that money. We can't just throw money here and there hoping that it has some desired effect or, for some political purpose or what have you. I think you have to be, prudent with taxpayer dollars, but you also want to make sure that you're funding those essential products and services that people need for good quality of life, for health, for well-being, for job growth and creation, for safety and security. There's a significant amount of money that's going to be going into school security, into mental health, into our healthcare industry, into agriculture. I mean, across the board, good things that are beneficial, particularly here in Indiana County, because I think you're seeing the realization that, our rural communities need much more support, and I'm happy to be a vocal advocate for that.
We're talking with State Representative Jim Struzzi this morning, and one of the things that I wanted to ask now was, now that the budget is over, what's next on the horizon as far as you're concerned?
Well, here in the district until September. We don't return to session until September 12th. So we've got a full schedule. You will see me in some form or fashion at just about every festival and fair that's going to be coming up, and I'm very excited about that. We'll have a legislative booth at the Indiana County Fair for the entire week. So I encourage people to come up and talk with us, share their issues and concerns. Again, we'll have a lot of materials that people can take that have information on government services and benefits. Of course, I have been reaching out to our local community leaders to find out what their needs and concerns are, partnering with them on projects, trying to, identify ways we can help with grant funding and things like that. Although it's not official until December 1st, the new district will include Salzburg, Young, Blacklick, and Conemaugh townships, so I've been reaching out to them as well to set up some meetings, walk around the various communities and find out what projects they need assistance with. So there's still a lot of good things happening, a lot of work to be done, and at the same time, working on pushing pieces of legislation that I have currently that are either in the House or in the Senate, trying to get them over the finish line here in our final few weeks of session at the end of this year.
One of the things, obviously, that we have to touch on is Reggie. Last time we had any new information was the fact that a Commonwealth Court granted the preliminary injunction.
Right.
Obviously, a step in the right direction as far as you're concerned.
Absolutely, and that's the argument. The argument that they upheld was the argument that we have been saying since the governor unilaterally initiated Reggie through an executive order. The governor does not have the power to create a tax, and essentially Reggie is a tax on the fossil fuel industry, on the carbon emissions. And that's the argument that we've been saying. It's not constitutional, and thankfully the Commonwealth Court agreed with that decision and issued this injunction. So the hope is that this can play out until basically there's a new administration that sees the benefit of our fossil fuel industries and it realizes that Reggie is detrimental to jobs, to our economy, to our local communities, to our energy production. And I'm very pleased with the way this has worked out, but we're not there yet. We still have to continue this fight.
One other thing, you mentioned some other legislation that you're putting your support behind and trying to get done in this next legislative session. One thing that came to mind was a bill that you had authored, I believe, a few years ago, concerning people who are being assaulted with handicapped individual situations. Right. Remind people of that.
Yeah, I authored that legislation in the first session I was in back in, I think, 2019. It has to do with a young man who was assaulted on the Hoodlebug Trail.
Yeah.
Codys
Law.
Yes,
yeah.
And that's why it's called Codys Law. And basically it says that, what happened was the young man was assaulted, and because of the way the law is currently structured, the assailants were only being able to be charged with simple assault.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't enough bodily harm. What this bill says is if you attack someone that knowingly has a disability, you are automatically charged with aggravated assault.
Which is a bump up to like a felony or...
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So it basically gives more leeway to prosecutors to file additional charges and hopefully deter this type of activity. I mean, that was horrific what happened to that young man. And the bill is currently in the Senate, so I would like to see it obviously come back over and go to the governor for a signature.
All right, so at least there's progress being made in all directions there on that one. Excellent. Jim, we're about out of time, but thanks very much. And you know what? It goes quick when you're here.
It does. I encourage people to go to our website, repstruzzi.com, sign up for our Friday emails. We'll have a list of all the places that we're going to be at this summer. Again, look for me at most festivals and fairs here in Indiana County.
And excellent. And also, if you have an issue, go ahead and talk with you, right?
Yeah, or stop into our offices at Philadelphia on 550 Philadelphia Street or in Blairsville and Homer City.
Excellent. Jim, thanks again for joining us on Indiana in the Morning. We can't wait to talk to you again next month.
Thanks for having me, Josh.
Our state representative, Jim Struzzi, joining us this morning on Indiana in the Morning, presented by First Commonwealth Bank. Our interviews presented by Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people.